It's beautiful, beautiful as always. So, what can I do to make the world a better place? Who would be okay if this world got a little bit better as a result of what we do collectively and individually today? I hope your hand is going up, because that's why we come together. If the world is not a better place as a result of the consciousness that we are raising, the lessons we are learning, what are you doing here? Some people come and they come to a church in 1,000 different places only to get and to receive and not to give. But there is a great circle of creation that makes the world a better place, yes? And so many of us are going around unconscious, completely unconscious to our responsibility for that equation, for that circle. And that circle must be present. And so today, if there was a prescription to make the world a more loving place, would you want to receive it today? You're getting a little trepidatious there. If there was a little bit of something I could share today that would cause you to be more responsible for the life that you were living, would you not want to take that prescription and live it? Yes. The truth will set you free, but first it's really going to piss you off. And that's a reality. Sometimes it's a very bitter pill to swallow, but the world is a bit unconscious these days, and we're leaning on artificial intelligence. Have you noticed that? AI is everywhere up in the field of our collective consciousness right now. And I actually got a call from several members of our congregation that said, did you know that as a minister, you could actually go on to an AI website and put in a couple of words and they would write your sermon for you? I said, well, let me go try it out. In fact, the national news, did you see a Jewish rabbi did that this week? Went out, printed an entire sermon, put out by a computer, an AI, and he delivered his message to his congregation, and the response was overwhelmingly fabulous and positive. In fact, they liked it a lot more than his usual sermons. So I thought, well, I'm going to go play for this topic, which is a bit sensitive today, and put it into the AI and see what it comes up with. And as I read what it spit out, you'd think it was absolutely almost human, as if it could reason and process and sermonize and be verbose, just like a minister. As I read what it spit out, I knew that it was about as close as we're going to get to human beings and the human mind, because there was a little fine print at the end of the sermon that said this: if this sermon bombs, I will simply blame it on another computer. Amen, hallelujah, praise the Lord. If it doesn't work, I'm going to blame it on another computer. The question that was asked in the song that we just heard, what can I do? Not what can you do or what can they do, is what can I do to make the world a better place? What is mine to do to elevate the human consciousness, the collective human consciousness, that the world is a more loving, more beautiful, more holy space? How many people ask yourself that question every morning when you get up? It's a question, okay, the two of you, you're holy, you're so holy. But the reality is it's a question we need to be asking. Not whose responsibility is it out there, a prophet from 2,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago, but every morning I get up, what can I do to make heaven on earth for the human race and for the planet? It seems a lot more people, like an AI, an artificial intelligence, are more concerned in pointing fingers at who's responsible for the mess of the human race. Who's responsible for the mess of the government? Who's responsible for the tension in my family? A lot of people are asking that, and I think a better question is, what can I do to make things better? Leo Biscaglia, anybody remember the name? Oh, Leo Biscaglia is the reason I'm a minister today. He moved my heart and my spirit, and he had this to say. I'm going to invite you to read this with me. Together? Don't spend your precious time asking, why isn't the world a better place? It will only be time wasted. The question to ask is, how can I make it better? To that, there is an answer. And I love to say, love is the answer. What's the question again? Love is the answer. Now, what was your question? Love more fully, love more readily, love more purposefully, love more attentively, love more regularly. Yes? The world as we know it today is running around in a constant state of asking the question, who's the matter with us? Who's the matter with you? And certainly the question on our lips in the morning is, who's the matter with me? If you want to gather an army to support your victimhood, Instead of growing, if you want to validate why things are so screwed up in the world, instead of healing the world, all you have to do is assign blame. Assign blame instead of getting busy making the world a better place. I told you I was going to meddle, Joel. We just got started on the meddling. You find fault instead of solution and focus on guilt rather than healing. Who's to blame for the problem of the earth today? Well, I like to go to our master teacher, Jesus. He had a lot to say about this stuff. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, it's not the greatest literature in the world, but boy, does it make a point. Let's put that next slide up there. It's a little long, but it bears reading. Let's read it together. You look at the bit of sawdust in your friend's eye, but you pay no attention to the piece of wood in your own eye. How can you say to your friend, let me take the bit of sawdust out of your eye? How can you say this while there is a piece of wood in your own eye? You pretender. First take the piece of wood out of your own eye. Then you will be able to see clearly to take the bit of sawdust out of your friend's eye. Now, in my college literature class, creative writing, I probably would have gotten a C- for that writing. But in the philosophy class, in a class on healing, that would have gotten an A+. We're going around and we're pointing fingers, and we like to laugh about it. One finger's going out, 3 are pointing back at me. But it's much easier to blame somebody else for the messes, for the problems. We live right now, the human race, in the blame game, which is clear testimony that we as a human race have traded convenience for context. I'd rather have convenience than context. I'd rather have comfort rather than understanding, looking beneath the surface to what is underneath the conditions, looking at the top of the waves of the ocean. I'd rather spend time focusing there than looking at the depth of the ocean where the answers lie, where life lies, where truth lies. The human race frequently defaults to the path of least resistance. This is what the human ego does, the path of least resistance when something goes wrong and something goes awry. And if you watch the news, there's a lot to point fingers at right now. Who's the matter with us? Who is the matter with the world? Blame dominates, and bias leads. I want you to hear that. Blame is dominating our culture, and our biases are leading. By doing so, it gives us a really convenient story, doesn't it? I've got somebody to, Judy, you're the problem with everything. I would have a much better life if you would just behave. Life would be so much better if Bill would just show up the way he's supposed to show up. When they have a convenient story, it's an easy scapegoat. And I'm saying we are not here to take the easy road. We are here to change the planet. Yes? We're not here to have a nice, cushy story of who's responsible and then go into our world and do nothing to make the world a better place. We hold ourselves responsible for the life that we are living, the world that we are living in. You see, the blame game is a story that stagnates. It kills energy and it shuts down any growth. But we are an educational institution. We are here to grow, and that means having the difficult conversations. And sometimes what happens is we take a spiritual concept, and the ego will do this. It will bring it to the microcosm and say, well, yes, that's true, but what about this area right here, this little thing? And we use that evidence to defend something humanly that negates the spiritual truth, or we blow it up big. The scripture I want to quote today is, pay unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and pay unto God what is God's. What does that mean? There will be consequences for human behaviors. There should be. But in the midst of that, we never lose sight of the divine essence of God that is at the center of all people, not just the ones that we like, not just the ones that agree with us. You can go here, but what about their behavior? But what about the spiritual truth? We are an institution that's about spiritual truth and not blame and shame and guilt. There's plenty of churches within 2 miles of us that will love to play the blame and shame and guilt game. We just don't do that here. And some people say, what is your card? How do you get people to come? You don't have guilt. You know what my card is? It's spiritual truth. That those who are willing to look in the mirror and have the difficult dialogues to find that spiritual truth as the bedrock, the understanding of all creation, the truth of oneness that we celebrate, that's at the cornerstone of all that we do. That's why we're here. And the ones that don't want to do that, I will invite them to a place where they can be comfortable in their story and not be confronted with how we are out of congruity. I'll take it, baby. Cognitive science has shown us that to the extent that a story feels comfortable, we believe that it's true. So we tell comfortable stories based on our bias, as opposed to seeking real truth. I want to seek real truth and not perpetuate a story just because it's comfortable and it's easy as a scapegoat. Simon Zweibach, he is a research scientist from Austria. He has this to say. Let's read it together. Can you read it? Is it too small? Get your glasses out. Together. The reality is that when we get to that comfortable story, we stop learning. We say, oh, that explains it. This short-circuits the learning process to alleviate discomfort of dealing with the complexity of systems. That may be a short-term relief, but it's a compounding expense over the long run because we're not addressing areas of fragility. I'm so precious and so tender that I can't sit in a church seat where I'm going to be confronted with what can I do to make the world a better place, because that's somebody else's responsibility. A lot of the religious systems of the world are making somebody else responsible for the saving of the world, for the heaven on earth. We're taking responsibility and we're putting it in our hands, in our heart, in our soul, in our spirit, in our lives. To encourage that kind of honest dialogue, which is what the world needs, we need safety over fault. We need to create safety over fault, to encourage learning. We need education over blame. I can already hear some yeah buts coming up. That's okay, I had some yeah buts too. I can blow it up and say, but what about this? What I teach is pay unto Caesar what is Caesar's, pay unto God what is God's. We've gotten so comfortable. We need to gather information on how to do things better, as the song said, instead of pointing fingers. There is great value in suspending culpability and condemnation for forward movement and healing. Zweibach continues when he writes this. Do we have another slide there? Nope, there it is. Oh boy, I can't even read that from here. You do your best, I'll do my best looking here. It's impossible to learn without all the data, without the full account of what happened. This is why information is more important than punishment. Yeah, but. I want you to hear that. Information is more important than punishment. What does that mean to you? I see some faces kind of puzzled. Just sit with it. You know, somebody said, my job is to just have a nice, sweet little talk here. I'm here to make you think. That's my only job. You don't have to agree with anything that Zweibach writes or I say. It's about making you think, and think at depth. When we shift judgment of any individual in an incident, we suspend our judgment from suspect to witness. I want you to hear that. I may have a difficulty with Judy. I'm going to pick on Judy because she's like a saint to me. When I shift my perspective from you as a suspect to you as a witness to what is going on in the world, what is going on in our relationship, healing is possible. Healing is absolutely possible. The minute I make her a suspect, looking for a reason to blame her why we're not getting along, guess what? No healing, no learning, no growth, no education can happen there. Breathe that in. The process of learning becomes inclusive and far richer. A mantra I have adopted throughout the years, and it's worked pretty well for me in difficult moments, is hard on systems, soft on people. So the question, who's the matter with us, is not a good question. The better question is, how can you and I, Judy, come to an awareness and a connection and a spirit that allows a greater love between us, as us, and thus, if it's between us, it's in the world. And First Service asked the question, well, what if they don't show up to the table? You know, right now, and I'm going to make a bold statement you might not agree with, but I watch the news and I look at the human race in the blame game, in the making of enemy game. We are on the precipice of World War III if we are not very, very careful. And I heard the dialogues. I hear them in the restaurants. I hear them in Holy Grounds Cafe, the bad Chinese. Blame. And there are behaviors. The bad Russians. And guess what? They're saying the bad Americans. The bad Ukrainians. And we can perpetuate that circle of blame and shame, or we can sit at the table and be the vibration of love, which is more powerful than all of it. And they asked me first service, what if they don't show up to the table? So somebody said something in a meeting this week that really made me laugh, and it made me take a good hard look at what we're talking about today. And they said, well, I will apologize if you apologize. Ever heard that one? I will own my stuff if you own your stuff. That's not the vibration of love. That's looking for a way out. And guess how's that working for us? There is not a way out of the mess that we are in. It is a way in. It is a way in. It is a way in. Breathe that with me. Exhale. As a minister, if I'm looking to inspire people, which is a part of my job to inspire you to think, blaming is the last thing I want to do, even if I think that you are responsible for what's happening in the environment. Accountability is an inside job. It is not my job to say, Judy, you are accountable to this. It is not her job to say, Richard, you are accountable to this. It is our job individually to create such a system of love, such a vibration of love, that we naturally want to go to the place of holding myself responsible for my actions, for my words, and my behaviors. Now, get real clear, because the yeah buts are all over the room right now. There is paying unto Caesar. And somebody said first service, what about the child who was molested? And I like to tell the story of one of my foster children. This is not just a theory for me. It's firsthand experience. Daisy came to our home panicked, night terrors, constant anxiety, every day having to go through anxiety attacks. And we did a little investigation about the road that led. Yes, she was molested by her father. Yet she also loved her father. But she was told for months and months and months, you're supposed to hate your father. He's to blame. He's wrong. He's evil. He's bad. And other people had taken pictures of her father and torn them up and said, now you tear them up. Tear them out of your heart. This child was like a nervous bird everywhere she went. And my wife, in all of her incredible wisdom, that's what the ego would do. Wrong, bad, blame. I know I'm on thin ice here. She said, it's okay to love your father. We don't love what he did. What he did was wrong. Pay unto Caesar. What he did was illegal. What he did was hurtful. Pay unto Caesar what is Caesar's. But pay unto God. Don't give up the part of your heart that can still find the love that you have for him. He was a very good father in every other way other than that one. And he went to jail, as he should have. He paid the price. All of her anxiety, when we quit tearing up pictures and looking for evil and bad, all of the anxiety attacks stopped. All of the night terrors stopped. And when he got out of jail, she was able to have a relationship when the rehabilitation had happened. He owned what he had done, and he died. He got cancer while he was in jail. But before that man died, his daughter got the opportunity to say, I don't condone what you did, but I love you. And luckily, Dad showed up at the table. But ours is to show up at the table whether there's nobody across the table or not. If my love is contingent upon somebody else being on the other side of the table to send love back to me, it's false love. It's an artificial intelligence. It is made up on the illusion of duality. Is it possible that I could vibrate at the essence of love and the vibration of love at so profound a level, no matter what's going on out here, that the wars could be a thing of the past? I have to believe that if there is only one of us in the room, there's only one of us on the planet, I have to believe that I don't care who's on the other side of the table. My job is to be love and to vibrate love. And there's nothing easy about that, is there? It's just easier to have the convenient story. Who's the matter with me today? Who's the matter with the world today? Kate Summers once wrote this. Let's read the next slide, please, together. To inspire others, focus your attention on the solution, not the blame. No good comes from blame. Good comes from finding a way to correct the situation. That's what Daisy did. And it took courage, it took guts, it took strength, it took truth and spirit. How many of us are sitting here today holding a resentment about something somebody did to you? I would say that the proverbial night terrors and anxiety attacks you're having today is the world is calling you for you to release that, to sit at the table and find a greater capacity to love. This idea works for groups of people just as it works for individuals, just as it works for the battles that are going on inside of us, blaming ourselves for something. The conflict needs to stop, and the vibration of love needs to get better. And as I come to church and I hear concepts, I hear spiritual truths, mine is to do better. Maya Angelou is one of my heroes. She said this, and I invite you to read this with me. I did then what I knew how to do. Now that I know better, I do better. Daisy's father came to that awareness. Daisy came to that awareness. And the people that told her to tear up her pictures, I don't know if they ever came to that awareness. But that's not my business. Accountability is theirs, not mine. Mine is to operate at the level of love. So what kinds of blame are there in the world? Call them out. I want you to call. What kinds of blame do you experience in the world? Self-blame. Yes? Self-blame. Blaming of other. If you are blaming an other and othering the universe, you are out of integrity with what we teach in unity. There's only one of us here. How many people miss the good old days when you could blame God? It must be God's will and God's doing it. What a cop-out that is. I don't have to ask, how can I make the world a better place? It must be God's will. You know, poor me, poor me, poor me. But then the other side of the coin, there's a whole bank of people that love to blame the devil for all the ills of humanity. I hate to tell you, we're taking the devil out of the equation. There is no devil. If there is one, it's the human ego. That's it. We blame God, we blame others, we blame the government, we blame people, we blame that party, we blame that party, we blame Judy, Judy blames Richard, and we perpetuate, and guess what? Judy's gathering her army, I'm gathering my army, and the next thing you know, we have World War III. World War III starts with two people who are unable to sit at the table and vibrate at love. If we can't stop it one-on-one, how in the world are we ever going to stop it globally? I want you to breathe that in. How about people who blame the circumstances? Oh, it's just the way it is. It's the circumstances. It's the cards I was dealt. It's the hand of the environment. Or perhaps more consciously nefarious that happens this day, I will use blame as propaganda. Blame as manipulation. Blame as gaslighting. No matter the form that blame is taking on the planet, it's a very low vibration. And if you're bringing blame to the table, that low vibration is perpetuating over and over and over and over again. How about we be the change we want to see on the planet? How about we perpetuate love no matter how hard it is, no matter if they come to the table or not, no matter what is on the table, no matter what is across the table, I will be the presence of love. Jesus, the master teacher, did it. Buddha did it. Krishna did it. Muhammad did it. Oh, yes, the blame can get you temporarily off the hook. If you notice that, it gives you a little bit of an exhale. You can get off the hook. It will protect the ego. But the outcome is very, very negative. In the long term, it disempowers everyone. Everyone. My making the enemy of the Chinese is disempowering the Chinese, and it's disempowering our nation, and it's disempowering me as an individual. And it's easy to do at that grand scale. Sure, yes, I agree. What about that uncle in your family? That's a jerk. The same principle applies. There is no other. The long-term consequences of the low vibration of blame are severe, and we are experiencing them today on the planet. Breathe. The long-term benefits of suspending blame are equally as dramatic. We need to hold on to that light and be the change we want to see. Blame blocks and shuts down intimacy. Plain and simple. Suspending blame allows us to access unseen abilities and talents we didn't know we had. You're going to find more of yourself, Judy, and I'm going to find more of myself, and suddenly the world is a brighter place because we're bringing more of the fullness of the light, the Buddha, the Christ. Blame shuts down information. The minute blame is into the room, there's no more information. There's no more learning. We suspend blame and we allow a free exchange of information. Blame blocks vision. Suspending blame allows us to have more clarity. The fog that we see, that's what blame does. There's a fog. I can't see past this experience to something greater, to the understanding. Blame will stop growth, and blame will stop evolution. Suspending blame invites a higher vibration where lessons can be learned. We are an educational institution. Blame stifles collaboration and creativity. Blame stops healing and avoids resolution. Blame creates others. Suspending blame creates unity. And the last time I checked, it says unity on the sign out front. Blame creates duality. And the last time I checked, I'm charged with bringing unity to the planet, and that you are as well. Yes? There's a Chinese proverb that says this. Let's put it up there. He who blames others has a long way to go on his journey. Stop there. It's easy to call people out when they're blaming somebody else, isn't it? Let's continue. He who blames himself is halfway there. Oh, we're coming home. We're coming home. I'm going to take a little bit of responsibility to making the world a better place. Finally, he who blames no one has arrived. I'm just asking that you suspend the yeah buts for just a moment once a day in your meditation when you get up and ask the question, how can I make the world a better place? The yeah but will be there, but I think what you'll find is the evidence that's going to show up in your life. I had a moment in a previous church I used to work for, and there was somebody in that environment I worked with musically. My definition was he was a complete jerk. I had other words for him I won't speak today. Guess what? He had the same opinion of me. And we were working together as musicians to create a service of worship, of joy and fun, and everybody could read when we were on the stage singing together, or I was directing the choir while he was getting the solo, that there was tension there. So we went to mediation. It was that obvious. We went to a mediator. This guy was really good. Before he met with us at the same table, he met with us individually, and he asked us both the same question. What part have you played in this tension? How dare you? What do you mean, what part I played? I am a victim here of terrible, awful, rude behavior. And let me give you my list of evidence. Now, I wasn't in the room. I was not a fly on the wall, but I think probably the same thing happened when he was in the room being asked the same question. What part did you play? And for weeks and weeks and weeks, trying to heal this divide in the church that was obvious, we met individually. And every week it was one iteration after another of, what part did you play in this tension, in this difficulty? And I guess he wore us out. He wore me out. And eventually said, well, fine. I guess I could have done this better. Or I could have reacted better here. And I think about the same time it was happening on the other side of the table. People tangibly recognized the difference in the music program. That which was intended for joy was back. That which was intended for worship was back. But it only came about by owning my part in how it came about. and finding a greater capacity to love. Now, I'd love to tell you that he and I became fast friends. That didn't happen. But let me tell you, the music was sweeter. The music was more powerful. The music was more connected to a God vibration of love than it was, I'm against you, you're against me. And what we did in that church and what I had to own is I wanted to plead my case to anybody who would have ears to listen about what a jerk he was. And I'd gather my army. I'd go tell the story, my convenient story that blamed him for the problem. And there was an army on his side, and there was an army on my side, and there was a World War III in the midst of a church that was about oneness. Everything changed when one person was willing to say, I don't care if he shows up at the table. I don't care if he owns his problems. I'm going to own mine. And I, in this moment, quit gathering the army. Healing then happened. Information happened. And yes, there were things I was doing that could be done better. And the music got sweeter. I don't know about you, but I'd like a lot more sweet music than we're experiencing on the planet today. How about you? The Lao Tzu, the founder, I think that deserves a better clap than that. If you assign me blame or I assign you total responsibility, there is no space for either of us to heal. There is no place for accountability because humility has been replaced with defensiveness and my convenient story. It blocks communication and teamwork. Lao Tzu says this. He's the founder of the Taoist religion. Let's read it together. Failure is an opportunity. If you blame someone else, there is no end to the blame. Therefore, the master fulfills her own obligations and corrects her own mistakes. She does what she needs to do and demands nothing of others. Yeah, but. We teach oneness. Yeah, but you've just discounted what we teach. There is only love. We sing that song. It's a Karen Drucker song. There is only love. Yes, but. I'm sorry. I'm not giving wiggle room to this community or myself anymore. Drop the yeah, buts. Good people make mistakes. Good people also fail. Good people often get criticized. Good people often blame. Good people have wounds. Good people have blind spots and weaknesses. Good people have very high emotions. Good people have egos. Have you noticed that? Good people sometimes get hurt, and good people sometimes hurt other people. Our job is to get to the understanding and to see the good people underneath the behaviors. And there's nothing easy about that. Our commitment to never forgetting the inherent value of every person on the planet, hidden or not, dark or light, will get us to the resolution, to the healing, the world peace that we sing about, the communication, the vision, the information, the growth, the intimacy, and the responsibility. I'm going to invite the band back up. Again, I like to go to my master teacher, my way shower. He's just one of many. Lao Tzu is one of them. Buddha is another. Jesus in the Gospel of John says this. Let's read it together. As he passed by, he saw a man blind from birth, and his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And Jesus answered, it was not this man who sinned, or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. We can continue with the artificial intelligence that is running this world, and we will get the same results. I'm not happy with the results. Let's resist the easy road. Examine the wood, the chunk of wood that's hanging out of our individual eye, and arrive at a higher and deeper vibration. And asking the questions, what can I do? How am I responsible? What part am I playing in the vibration that's high or low? What can I do to reveal more God here? here. Here. More love here. The answer, suspend the blame and get on about the business of healing, growth, learning, and oneness.